behold, the angel of the Lord appeared unto him and said unto him, The Lord is with thee, thou mighty man of valor. Now, here's the interesting thing. That's verse 12. Here's the interesting thing. Verse 11 tells us that when God said this, when the angel said this, Gideon was hiding from the Midianites when the angel of the Lord appears and calls him, Thou mighty man of valor. Gideon was a mighty man of valor, and he didn't know it. He thought he was a coward. He's out there hiding because there's something to be done. And all the time God said, hey Gideon, you're not a coward, you're a man of valor. And sometimes the things that we've made ourselves believe that keeps us from standing up from God, God said, that's not who I made you to be. That's not the person I created in you. I created a mighty man of valor, a mighty leader of valor. I created somebody to do this job. And so we rise up and get it done. So God says to Gideon, you're a mighty man of valor. Let me read Judges 6:11. There came an angel of the Lord and sat under an oak which was in Ophrah that pertained unto Joash the Abiezrite, and his son Gideon threshed wheat by the winepress to hide from the Midianites because he was scared of them. My point is, obey God and you get over your sense of fear. I mentioned Brent and I both pilots, and all of my life, from the time I was a little boy, I would stand in the front yard, and I had a friend whose brother flew for the Navy, and when he was on training missions, he would get them to allow him to fly over our hometown. And when he flew over our hometown, he would buzz his parents' house, and the parents' house was 2 blocks from us. Now, if you're in a jet going at a ridiculous speed and you buzz a house 2 blocks away, you're still buzzing the house 2 blocks from there. And the angle that he came, he would come over our house, and everything would rattle in the house, and I would know that was Bobby Tramble's brother. And I would look at Daddy and say, I'm going to fly one of those things one of these days. And Daddy would say, yeah, sure, son. Yeah, sure. But one day, Daddy got in a plane beside me and took a ride because I did learn to fly a plane, and I did own a few planes. And you see, the point I'm trying to get at is that I was willing to see something that Daddy couldn't see. I was willing to see that. And so we must look at not what we think we are, but at what God thinks we are, and say, I'm going to achieve this for God. Now, in spite of that, do you remember your first time behind the yoke at pilot's training? Now, if you're human, you're a little apprehensive. This dude's going to make you take off the plane. They literally set you in the pilot's seat, and the guy gets over and says, now, this is how you do it, now take off. That literally happens. But guess what? When you do take it off and you're up off the ground, you're saying, whoa, that wasn't so bad. And then he says, now we got to land this thing. That's a little different. That's a little trickier. But before long, you're landing it, and you're saying, that wasn't so bad. And then you do all this various training. And everything you do, there's a little fear there until you do it. Until you do it. And so it is with serving God. When we start to serve God, there'll be a little fear there. Well, those people may laugh at me. But you try to talk to them, and even if they do, suddenly you realize it didn't feel like you thought it would, and the fear begins to leave. So we must begin to do something in order for the fear to go away. Next thing, God uses us in order to bring great reward. Judges 8:28, this is the story of how how the people of Israel defeated Midian, which never recovered. Throughout the rest of Gideon's lifetime, about 40 years, there was peace in the land. Let me tell you, there will never be more peace in your heart than when you have been used of God. And it may not be that big thing where you go out and defeat the Midianites. I don't even know what a Midianite is. But it may not be that big thing of going out and defeating the Midianite. It may be reaching that person for Jesus. I did a funeral back first of the year. In December. In fact, I did a funeral of one of the best deacons I've ever had in my lifetime on a Saturday. And I did the funeral on Monday at the far corner of the state from that funeral for my best friend from the first grade on growing up. And some years ago, that best friend had called me and said, could I come and spend a few days at your house? Now he played for Alison Krauss and that group. He was a musician and a half. But he came and he said, could I spend a few days with you? I sensed he was really needing something, and so I got him out in a boat on a lake. That's a good place to witness. They can't go anywhere. So I got him out in a boat on a lake, And I began to share with him, and finally I said, I think what you need to do is have a talk with God. He said, I don't know for sure how. Now, he played for a gospel, but I don't know for sure how. And I said, just pray like I pray. And I just started praying, and he started saying the same words. And in a little while, the Spirit of God began to come on him. And in a little while, he recognized the saving power of Jesus Christ. And in a little while, his life changed. But here's the part that I want you to get. This guy who didn't even know, he didn't feel like he could do anything. In fact, what he said, the reason I'm feeling so down, he says, is, all you guys have done important things, and I just play an instrument. And I said, yeah, but you play an instrument in a group that touches the world, So I tried to, but here's the thing. That guy who felt like he was nothing, within the next while, I started getting calls from my classmates, our classmates, mine and his, how Dennis had led them to Jesus Christ. Things were happening. Because one step leads to another step. So I'm just trying to tell you, being used of God will bring great rewards your way. And in Gideon's case, it was a total time of peace. And being used of God will bring peace to your life. I'm going to say this. I hope you understand it. Again, it's neat being the guest speaker. I'm going to leave after a while. I'm going to say this, though. If you let God use you, you will never be a complainer again in the church. You will never again be the person who says, why doesn't the church do better? You'll be the person who says, I'm going to do better in that area where the church is lacking so that the church will be better. Because what was that little lady in my first illustration? What did she say? I've learned through this that if God can use me and make me what he wants me to be, then God can use the church because I am the church. Pastors lead, but it only works if people follow. That's simple. All right, cheerleader time again. Would you stand? If you can't stand, I understand that, but you can still do the cheer. God, please use me for your glory. Let's do it again. God, please use me for your glory. Let's do it again. God, please use me for your glory. One more time. God, please use me for your glory. Wow. Are you feeling what I'm feeling? I think God's touching some lives here, and some folks are honestly saying, I'm going to do more for God than I've ever done before. And I appreciate y'all coming, but this is one of those weird service endings one more time like last week. I want to leave on that cheer. That was a prayer. That was a prayer. Do it again, you'll see it. God, please use me for your glory. The difference in this altar prayer is we all prayed it. And God is touching all of us. Now, somebody asked me, Brandon, I won't go too far, but somebody asked me, is there any progress being made with the search for pastor? And my answer was absolutely. The deacons are working hard at it, and they don't have somebody to present yet. We don't know for sure what God's going to do yet, but yes, they're working at it, making progress, filtering things down, talking to people, and yes, progress is being made. But it isn't nearly as important who the pastor is as it is who the church is. Whoa. Whoa. But true. God bless you. Look at somebody right now and say, God's going to use me for his glory. Do it. Pretty neat, huh? God bless you. God bless you.